Hello, truth seekers. Lawrence here, and welcome to Easy Enlightenment. So, here's the thing, guys. There is no starting fresh until you die thoroughly in your ego self. Without dying in the ego self, and you think you're starting fresh, it's simply an illusion. The idea of starting fresh sounds good for the ego self. The starting fresh is coming from the place of struggle, isn't it? We struggle, and when there's tremendous struggle, we don't want to go through the struggle, and we want to give up so we can start fresh. Starting fresh can be anything, isn't it? If you're struggling in your relationship with another human being as a partner, life partner, when there's so much misunderstanding, so much fight, eventually that makes you want to give up and you want to start fresh. Same in your career. When you struggle in your workplace with another human being, when you experience that you are not treated well, then you want to give up and start new. When the environment you're living in is not working, you want to give up. So basically, depending on the scenario, everybody want to give up something and start fresh. The idea of starting fresh is logically makes sense. And you can start fresh. But thing is that starting fresh will begin with the old self. Old self is your conditioned you, the conditioned body, conditioned mind. And when you're starting something new, definitely in the beginning, there's not much friction with the world, with the people. But the more you stay in the environment, the more you build up something, the relationship starts to build up, isn't it? Then from there, you will understand the world, you understand the people, and you start to experience the friction because you have a certain preference, certain mentality for yourself and for the world. And when the people have different perspective, then the friction starts to resurface again, isn't it? Yes, you can choose to ignore that. But even you ignore the physical side, the fight that resurfaces in the new place leaves the residue in your head as an idea. Now the idea is there. The idea creates the further narrative. The ego self in you creates a narrative on that experience. And then this is the start of the fight coming in from the world, from experiencing the world, experiencing the people. So no matter where you go, where you put yourself, the friction is always going to be there. Why? Because there will always be a different perception, different preference. The world always will have different preference. Yes, sometimes it matches. Sometimes, most of the time, it won't because of the different level of growth in life, and especially when you have grown enough, but the world is not there. Now there's a clash. Or when you haven't grown enough, but the world is already ahead of you. There's a clash. The clash is always going to be there. And no matter what you start new, there's always will be friction. There's always will be fight. There will be struggle. That's why there's no starting fresh until you die thoroughly in your ego self. Before you die thoroughly in your ego self, your starting fresh is already coming from the place of ego. Your ego self feel hurt, and your ego self don't want to get hurt. Your ego tells you to start fresh, and you're starting fresh, and you end up struggling again. I hope this makes sense. Some of you definitely, been there, and you know what I'm saying. No matter where you go, the struggle is already there. The struggle is happening because we hold certain preference, certain beliefs so tight in us. We see that preference, that belief is so true, and we move with that. We're trying to make that belief permanent, and because of that we suffer. All belief is just coming from the place of experience, and experience is always changing. And all belief will change through experience. When we hold on to certain belief, we are anchoring in this changing realm, and trying to make this changing realm permanent. And that's how we are suffering. We are trying to make something permanent because of the struggle itself, isn't it? In the past, we have struggled enough. And because of the struggle, now you have found something to push away the struggle, push away the fear in life, by holding on to certain belief and certain preference. And now you're preferring certain way. And that preference, certain approach is already coming from the place of fear of don't want struggle, don't want uncertainty, don't want to struggle, don't want to go through the pain. That's why the preference is there. It's okay to have a preference, but when we start to make that preference as a reality, and everything is changing in the world, and that's where the clash comes in. In the first place, the preference is just the extension part of you. It's not real you. We need to anchor in who we are rather than the mind. Mind is all changing. Mind comes from the place of experience. And when the mind starts to ingrain in us, that becomes a reality. That makes us forget who we are. And when we forget who we are, when we don't see who we are moving the place of the layers, and we're fighting with the layers, and we're struggling with the layers. If you want true freedom, even in the chaotic world, it's possible, but we have to die in the ego. If something bothers us in life, it's because we have a certain preference in our head. We have a certain belief in our head. And we need to investigate why we have this preference, why do we have this belief, why I hate the world the way it is right now. And that's the way to figure out why we hold on to certain things in life. And to be free in the noise is by really understanding our attachment, our fear, by tracing it backward. And tracing it backward will help us to see why we have the ingrained belief in us, and why we have a hard time being flexible. We see the root cause of the problem, and we have to let go of the root as well. And that's where the real friction starts to build up, real fight. The outside fight is not even the big fight. The big fight, the big struggle, the big battle is when we see the ingrained belief in us, and when we realize that we have to give up what we hold on to figure out who we are. And that's where the heat is. And that is where the ego is clinging to maintain something. That's where that's the root cause of the friction that we experience outside. That root cause is making us to start something new, create a new beginning. Creating a new beginning is coming from the root cause, which is the ego self. Ego self is frustrated by the environment. Ego self wants to start new. Ego self makes you start new. Ego self will make you suffer in the new environment. And again, the same cycle of, the frustration starts to come again, resurface again, and then we start to go through that motion again. So it's a never-ending struggle. So again, starting new is simply an illusion until we die thoroughly in our ego self. So some of you have started new. Reflect. Are you free? Are you free? Truly free? The answer is no. You're still struggling. You still have the same mentality. You're carrying your same old mind in the new environment. And you are struggling. The answer is that. Or you will end up struggling again. There will be an inner fight and outer fight you will experience. That means starting fresh is simply an illusion. It's illusion because, again, the ego is in charge of the new beginning. So the new beginning is only there when we die in our ego self. And how to die in the ego self is tracing our ego backward. That means tracing our frustration, tracing our anger, tracing our madness, tracing our fear, tracing our drama, tracing our conflict backward to figure out the root cause of the surface friction. And then we have to give up. We have to let go the root as well. And when we start to work on the root, that's where we start to experience a fear of many layers. And in working on the fear, dismantling the fear is the way to eventually see who we are as consciousness. And when we see that, the ego gives up now, and that's the new beginning. It's called a rebirth. You will still have the body, you still have the mind, but how you see things changed. So that is enlightenment. You are enlightened. You are enlightening yourself by seeing the true nature of who you are. All right. I hope this video makes sense. Again, there's no new beginning until you die thoroughly in your ego self. And all mind is an ego. The mind has to be annihilated to nothing. And that's the approach. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now. Bye.